list is from Cheryl.
And I think it's temporary, the 50% off stuff.
It really was supposed to end last night. If we want these, I think we have to make that decision today and let her
Okay.
know. She had to work. She normally would have been off, but there was a death from another employee's family.
Yeah, I mean, just quick glance. I'm not a big fan of any of the cherries because they're typically fairly short-lived and tend to have lots of issues. So,
Let's call this to order and get it on the books. How about that? Okay, so, we don't have an agenda today because we're going through a little transition. Our fiscal officer, Courtney Bricker, who was also the clerk of council, resigned from that position. She has since been rehired, but only as a fiscal officer. So she's just doing the budget and the payroll and the books, financial stuff. So she will not be our clerk anymore in our meetings. And until we hire a new one, the posting went up today to hire a new clerk, then we don't have an agenda. We're just gonna go
so is
by
that
it.
taking a full-time job and splitting it into 2 part-time jobs?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was only a part-time job.
She was a
Two
part-time,
jobs as a part-time job.
Okay.
but she was working a lot more hours than her 20, and it was just a lot, so that's why she was gonna
No.
resign. But now there's a new format, and it's something she can handle, and just the finance part of it, so that's good fit for her.
Sometimes that's what it takes to make things change.
Right. So that's a good thing for her, and then hopefully by the next time we have a meeting, we'll have a clerk. So since the meeting's being recorded, I probably won't be taking minutes because I want to talk. But I can go back and watch it and write the minutes and give them for next month. So with that said, I'm going to just try to go down the list. What all of you have in front of you, well, we will skip the portion that says approval of the minutes, because we don't have the minutes from last month. Yes?
Maybe Robert could introduce.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Maggie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Maggie Rundio. I'm the newest regional urban forester for the state of Ohio, for the central region, so 12 counties in central Ohio. I have not yet memorized them because it's only been 2 weeks. Just gave us the map last week. But I am a graduate of the Ohio State University in forestry, and I'm originally from Worthington. Excited to work with everybody here. So.
Now, where are you at now? Where do you live? Are you?
Right now I live in Mansfield because for the past year I was the North Central Regional Urban Forester up there. So my office was in Ontario, and then I've now transferred, so I have yet to move my apartment.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll be moving to Upper Arlington in the next couple weeks because I found a really cheap apartment. So
Good
I know,
for you.
I know, big in Upper Arlington, big win. So hopefully it's not haunted or anything weird like that for such cheap
So
rent.
essentially, she'll be taking over what was Alistair's territory.
Yes.
I don't think is there any changes from Alistair's territory?
Besides the counties that we gave to the other, like to your region and
You took back the one county.
never mind.
'Cause I had Pickaway, and I no longer have Fayette, not Pickaway, Fayette.
Yeah.
You're Madison, so
Yes. So I do have you guys.
We will be with you.
Yes. Yeah.
So, are you telling us our time with you is coming to an end, or will you still be intertwined?
So the plan is that all of the communities that I am involved with that have grants, I will continue to provide guidance on the grants. That way, there's as much continuity as possible.
Perfect.
Hopefully, by the time we wrap up the grants at the end of next year, Maggie feels comfortable that she's flying solo. But that does not mean that, we're still a team, and if there's assistance needed, she may pull me in. Now the problem is with Ann retiring the end of the year, I am probably going to get pulled southeast more than I am going to get pulled northwest. So, but, we have been, I started almost 2 years ago, and since then we've been in pretty much, it seems like about every 6 or 8 months something changes. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'll still be around, just probably not quite as regularly as I have been.
And you're called a forester, or what's your title?
Regional urban forester.
Do you have cards, Maggie?
I do have a car. I do. The office is wrong because I just ordered new business cards for my last region and then moved. So, or I can.
Take this around.
Thank you. I'll just
Do
leave
you
it.
want the rest of us to introduce ourselves?
Yeah, we'll just do a quick intro to you, Maggie. Start down there.
Joyce.
I'm Mary.
Mary works in our water department.
I'm a longtime Mount Sterling resident. I've lived here 58 years.
I'm Heather Basil. I'm on council. I grew up here, then went to college, and now I'm back with my family. So, yeah.
And I'm Becky. I'm also on council and run a nonprofit here in town. And I love trees, so we're going to be fast friends. And
I'm Bill Storr. I grew up here. I live in Columbus area now. Just come back because I care for the town. So,
Hi, I'm Joyce Phillips. I'm the president pro tem, and I'm married into a gentleman that is from the village, and we've lived here for 20-some years.
Excited to work with all of you guys.
Yeah.
This would be fun. Yeah.
so, as you know, we have a grant on the table that we are getting ready to start doing. So what you all have here, Cheryl, as I started to tell Robert earlier, Cheryl, one of her coworkers had a death in the family, so she had to work today. But her Darby Creek Nursery and Landscaping was having a sale on trees, 50% off of all these trees. And so she said she went out and got a list of the ones that I guess were the right size or whatever specs that she thought would work. So she wanted this list to come to us to look at today to see, you know, the grant's a $30,000 grant, and there's no match money from the village or anything like that, but we planned on pretty much hopefully doing it in 2 sections, maybe half of it this year and half next year, or a third of it this fall and then a third in the spring and a third again in the fall. But we have until the end of next year, 27, right?
Correct.
To disperse the whole grant. So this is just a list, and Robert, I know you were looking at it, and you and Maggie are the most expertise in this field. So if you want to look at it, and Mary, did she tell you, like, are our prices the ones that are listed?
Correct. The first column
Way over
on the left is the original price.
The compare at, I'm assuming, is retail,
Yeah.
and then the price is actually what you guys would be paying.
Okay. All right.
So it's
yeah, it's half.
half off. So, for instance, item number 2, which is really tree number 1, it says, you know, $299.99, so $300 first price, and then sale price $150.
Okay.
That's just an example.
So she has a nice long list here, and I know, Robert, you were looking at it and making some comments.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so I guess, you know, I guess the question becomes is the plan still to do the planting at the park, or are you guys looking, okay.
Discussion, that's going to have to go back to council.
No, it does not.
It does. It's going to go back to
What reason
council.
would it have to go back to council?
I'm taking it back to council because I'm
Well-
getting a lot of feedback on where they're going, and we have to look at electrical lines. There are different things, so it is going to go back to council for discussion.
What
Okay.
other land is there that could be considered? I'm just wondering, like, what
Okay.
other land could be considered?
All of your right-of-ways, your, you know, your tree lawns could be planted as
The
well.
plan discussed and approved many times. The plan was
hasn't.
approved by council, and just because something now, you want to control every single thing in
I'm
this
not
entire
controlling anything.
village.
I'm not controlling anything, Becky. I'm just doing what the residents are asking me to do.
The residents, you and Nathan?
No,
your
not me and
spouses?
Nathan has nothing to do with this. Okay, but there are
Whatever.
residents that are
So
concerned.
for the right-of-way, I'm confused, what's a right-of-way?
So essentially, there'd be the tree lawn between the sidewalk and the street.
So that's where all the power lines are, so we wouldn't wanna plant trees.
No, we don't.
We never
Around
had a
plant-
plan to plant.
So
them
I'm just
around.
wondering, where else could we plant trees?
There's some empty spots in the back that they would look beautiful in, that would cover up
The
a lot of
back
ugly
way.
space. In the very back of the park, there's a lot of
So that's still
open
planting at the park.
spaces. That's still at the park.
It's just to argue for argument's sake.
Yeah,
We're not
it's
arguing
to
for argument's
control.
sake.
We wanted it at the fence line. There was a fence there.
Right,
And the
remember that.
fence disintegrated, crumbled, when it was trying to be repaired. And we asked council to maybe replace it. We had a bid to replace it at cost. Council, in their wisdom, refused that. And so then, a couple of years later, we had an opportunity for a grant. And in our grant plan, that we revised and revised to make council agree to take free $30,000 worth of trees. When we finally jumped through enough hoops and we got enough votes, we had the exact plan to put a line of trees out there near the road for beautification, for separation from the 207, for tree, what do they call them, canopy? And that's what council did agree on the plan. Our plan was approved by ODNR, and that is how the grant stands.
gotcha. Okay, so Joyce, what you were saying was you didn't wanna plant trees.
Not me.
You were gonna bring it back to council because people don't want the trees planted at the park?
There are concerns about them being planted out front. There are concerns from village employees, from the mayor, from council members,
But you
from
still want them
residents.
planted at the park?
Absolutely, they can plant them. There are lots of opportunities.
So we're still planting
in
at the
back.
park?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
but
gonna-
I just,
I'm gonna
it sounded
continue
like
with
you
my
didn't
thought.
want them planted at the park.
That is not true.
So re-say what you wanted to say, just so we're clear for the record.
There are plenty of opportunities to plant trees further back in the park
Okay,
to create shade and to hide some of the ugliness from some of the businesses on 62.
That backside.
Yes, absolutely.
okay, that makes sense to me.
Sure it does.
Okay, so continuing with tree purchasing.
Okay, so, Robert, in answer to your question, you asked me, yes, my plan, our plan is to still plant the tree canopy along 207. And what we had envisioned, since we're gonna do this in at least 2 different plantings, possibly 3, is along that line, planting one and then skipping enough space for next year's plantings, so they're all growing, you know, at different integrals and, things like that. So,
So,
with that said, what are you thinking about this list?
you know, my personal feeling is, you know, there's some really good trees on here. I think if you're looking to plant screening, I would be a little more inclined to select, say, 3 or 4 species.
Screening as in what I'm talking about?
Either, you know, whether it's at the back of the park screening, whether it's the front of the park, you know, if, you know, so a number of these trees are fairly small trees, and we always encourage people to maximize the size of tree that you have for the space that you have. And obviously, it doesn't matter where you plant out there, you know, those trees are gonna have all the space in the world. So like when you get into red buds, like, yes, red buds are pretty, but we're looking to maximize canopy. You know, our entire goal was to grow canopy. That's what the grant is for. So, you know, I would much rather see that 150 spent on a tree that's gonna get a big, broad canopy than I would see, you know, same thing with, you know, I'm not as familiar as Cheryl would be with the, you know, particular varieties of birch that she has on here. But by and large, you know, I tend to see issues with birch. Birch has, you know, and these may be some of the, like, there's a birch borer. These may be some of the resistant ones. I don't know these particular varieties well enough to know, you know, the exact attributes. But again, my feeling is, if we're gonna plant stuff, plant stuff that's going to get big canopy.
Okay.
It's just like, the slender silhouette sweet gum is going to be more of a columnar tree, so it's going to be tall and skinny, which for a streetscape makes perfect sense. For a park planting, it doesn't necessarily make sense.
And so,
Which ones would you suggest on this list? Like, what are some that we should focus on?
So like, and again, I don't know if this is just what, like, if this is what they have at the nursery, which is why they're trying to sell them. And that's the reason you only get 2 of this and 1 of that and that sort of thing. I really like the black gum.
the wild.
Yeah,
black gum?
again, that, the varieties are something that I struggle with, so I don't know, I'm not as, the other thing that's nice about black gum is, I know out there's some wetter areas. Black gum is a little more resilient to some of those wetter areas.
The other question is, on the pricing, how do you think that compares to if we went to a grower that would also plant the trees? Is this really
So by and large, what I'm seeing with the communities that I'm working with, that you're typically somewhere in that $500-ish range for a tree installed.
okay?
Depending on who you go with and how big a tree you go with and whether it's balled and burlapped or containerized, and there's a lot of variables in there, but it seems like that for that $500 to $600 you can get a pretty nice tree. Now I don't know what the plan, and I know there's been talk at one point about you guys had somebody local that was interested in planting the trees. So I don't know what his cost would be, but my feeling is, and this is nothing against Sherrill or Darby Creek, but if you're looking to make a statement, I would be much rather is let's choose a handful of 3, 4, 5 species that are going to be fairly resilient, going to be tough, are going to hold up under pressure, because realistically, when you get into the varieties and cultivars, there tends to be a little more maintenance required, and you guys don't have a ton of staff time to be dedicated to maintenance. So my feeling is let's find some things that are a little more resilient, so that way you put in 30 trees, next fall you still have 30 trees alive, and then you can as the community sees that impact, they say, oh, we like trees, and then hopefully long term, as that kind of push grows is, okay, let's start putting in, X number of trees per year, and then you can grow that community urban forest long term, step by step by step.
So, would this be a good time to whittle down 3 to 5 species that we like?
Well, as I'm reading Cheryl's list that she gave us, it looks like there's only 1 bur oak tree for sale from her company. It looks
Correct.
like there's only 1 red oak tree. So it looks like,
And that's part of the problem when you get this late in the season, as you start, the earlier you can get your order in, the better off you are as far as availability goes. And I don't know, I have not been to Darby Creek. I don't know if they grow their own stuff or if they bring in most of their own stuff. But again, that's, and some nurseries, and that's, it's one of the limitations of working directly with a nursery versus working with, say, a tree planting or landscape company, is, most of the contractors that I've been working with in other communities, they may be sourcing trees from 4 or 5 different nurseries. So, okay, well, this one may not have what I need, but this one does. And, you may end up paying a couple of delivery fees, but you can get what you want.
I know in our last meeting, we brought up the name Jeff Pickens, that he has a tree farm, he's donated to the community center, and he does the planting himself. It sounds like we need to get a hold of his list of trees. You know what I mean? If this seems too limited.
Well,
Yeah,
You were gonna give us some.
Yeah, so like, given the situations out there, You know, I really like bur oak. Bur oak's a good one.
I agree.
You know, any of the oaks are good. You know, the frontier, I'm not sure. There's a Princeton elm that has a little more. It's a little larger, if I remember correctly, than the frontier elm. Give me just a second. I'll look up the frontier elm. Yeah, the Princeton's going to be a little bit larger. So again, for the frontier is going to be 40 feet tall, whereas the Princeton I think gets like 60 feet tall. And again, when you're looking in large spaces like you guys have, then it makes sense to maximize that canopy. So yes, 50 to 70 feet tall for the Princeton. You know, the magnolias can be really nice. You know, red oak can be really nice. Zelkova is kind of a mid-sized tree. You know, hornbeam can be really nice. Horse chestnuts, okay, but horse chestnuts and buckeyes can be pretty nice. They're a little more can be a little more finicky on sight. And like I said, the black gum and the sweet gum both I like. Sweet gum has a really nice, traditional sweet gum has a really nice red fall color. The one thing, if you're going to look at sweet gums, is make sure you get them, especially in the park, that are seedless. Get the male varieties, because nobody wants to be dealing with all the spiky seeds throughout a park. Otherwise, you'll have kids out there chucking them at each other.
Well, sweet gums, I would vote against that, because when we built, the builder put in sweet gums. He said they were males, so we wouldn't have seed pods. Either he didn't know, or they had a sex change, because we have enough sweet balls now. So it's like they're a pain.
Yeah. So, I mean, black gum's another good one. It's pretty tough. Not quite as tough as sweet gum, but and it doesn't have the seed pods that sweet gum does. That's certainly an option. Linden, I really like the lindens.
Are these things that are on this list, or are these just things you're
No,
talking about?
these are just,
Okay, because I'm trying to find it. Wait a minute.
and again, it kind of depends on what you guys want to do. And I know that historically you guys have leaned on Cheryl fairly heavily for her, horticultural knowledge, and that's a great thing to have. But,
She actually wanted to be called. Did you happen to?
Well, she wanted to be FaceTimed in if we were gonna talk about, or if we had any questions about.
This list, okay.
so, and this is nothing against the nursery industry, but what I see in the nursery industry is they want the newest and best and sexiest thing to sell. And those aren't necessarily the things that we as urban foresters or you guys as communities want to be planting, because they're not, to me, if I'm going to put something in the ground, if I'm going to spend the money and the time to put it in the ground, I want something that's proven. I don't want the newest, sexiest thing. I'm not an early adopter. I know a lot of people that are, but that's not how I roll, especially when you're playing the long game here. Ideally we're going to plant trees in the next couple of years that, your kids, great-grandkids, great-great-grandkids will see. So let's look at things that are, have been here a very long time. Try to stay out of, you go back and you look at so many issues. Bradford pear is a huge one. It was great for a while, and then 15 years down the road, we realized what we gotten ourselves into, and that can of worms has been opened, and there's no going back. So, it's one of those things where I'm, as much as possible, I like to be a little more, native, or at least, regional. But understand that, we do have options from across the country and across the world that are in similar climates that do grow very well here. So.
I wonder if this is just a sale list, or if this is their full list of.
This is their sale list.
Okay.
So, Becky, were you wanting to maybe get a list of like 5 trees? Like 5 types of trees?
Yeah, Robert, you said, 3 to
But-
5 species that
So
are
what
tough,
would you,
large.
so what Becky,
canopy.
so you wanted him to recommend maybe 3 or 5 species, so we still
Yeah.
have the variety.
Yeah.
And is that enough variety? Like if we're spending, $30,000 and that's with planting, with everything we need, is 5 species enough of a variety?
Yeah, I mean, and so a lot of that, so ideally what we'd shoot for is what we call a 5-10-15 rule. So you have no more than one species, no more than one genus, or no more than 5% in species, no more than 10% in the genus, no more than 15% in the family. Most of our communities are going to be lucky if they hit the 10-15 or the 10-20-30 rule. So we want to create some diversity, but at the same time with you guys, a lot of the communities that I work with, like every single street tree they have is a maple. So we're avoiding planting maples at all because, if we have something like emerald ash borer comes through that attacks maple,
Right.
you lose all of your urban forest.
So what's out there now? What's at the park now?
There's a handful of maples.
And lindens, couple 4 lindens, I think.
Okay, that's what's out along the road currently?
Well, no, it's by the first ballpark, there were silver lindens, right? And then the 2 that the housing development planted, I believe, were as well. So I know we have at least 4, and then we planted last year the 2 red maples. Is that what we just planted that were underwater briefly?
Yeah, those are 2 maples of some variety. I looked at them today.
But, I mean, we only have in all 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like 11 trees planted out there. Now, along the back, there are a lot of natural trees.
Yeah, you've got
that
your
are already
natural
there.
hodgepodge of, it's probably a lot of hackberry and.
Yeah, there's some things that need cut out, but there's some nice trees back there, along the back of the park.
Well, you mentioned the bur oak. I think bur oaks are
Yeah.
strong, and we don't have those out there yet. So that would be something to add, that I would like to add to our list. If we're not doing any floral plants, if we're not going to do any like rosebud or anything.
The problem with all, or I shouldn't say all, most of the flowering species is they're pretty for a couple of weeks, and then they're
Messy.
messy. They're, like a lot of people love crab apples. I despise crab apples because they look great for 2 or 3 weeks, and they look like garbage the rest of the season.
Right.
So, and a lot of our flowering species are fairly sensitive to soils, and by and large, our urban soils are pretty disturbed. Now, at the park, it's probably a little better than your average soil, but it's one of those things that, not something that I would, let's obviously, I'm sure there's bur oak in that, bottom down through there. Is that big one a bur oak, Bill?
Do that.
Okay.
The big oldest tree is
Yeah.
white swamp oak.
Some white, okay.
Swamp oak, right?
Sorry.
So that
So,
would be one tree I would like to put on the list, is the bur oak.
yeah.
And you had mentioned lindens, maples.
The American linden is another good one.
The what?
American linden.
American linden.
Kentucky coffee tree is pretty stout.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
And it kind of reminds me of like a locust leaf. It kind of turns that yellowish in the fall, has the long seed pods on it, but it doesn't have the thorns. If you get in some sites that are really tough, the thornless honey locust is a great option, but I wouldn't put it. Ideally, you don't want to put your junkyard dogs, as we call them, in your best sites.
Right.
So yeah, I would think, bur oak, the American linden, Kentucky coffee tree. Just trying to think, there was
Horse chestnuts.
yeah, horse chestnut or buckeye. Horse chestnut's probably a little more resilient. They get big, and I think the red one.
You said the black gums or?
Yeah, black gums are nice.
Well, back to the nut trees. Do they produce nuts? Like, I know buckeye trees produce nuts, and we don't want, to have to mow around those. That's always like,
So like the horse chestnuts, they do produce nuts, but they're a smaller nut. Obviously all your oaks will produce acorns. But But yeah, I mean, I've never heard anybody complain about mowing around horse chestnuts or acorns.
Oh, okay.
Typically, it's
But the Buckeye would.
yeah, your
That's
buck, you know, your Buckeyes would be bigger, but you know, typically the big ones that I hear complaints about are hickory and walnut. Seem to be
Okay.
the two big ones.
Absolutely.
You know, and then if you get into like, you know, if you get wild and crazy and you plant like pawpaws and plums and that sort of thing, like, you know, people start complaining about those because those are big fruit. But those aren't something that typically, you know, like if you were going to plant down along the creek and try to naturalize an area, you might consider planting something like plum and pawpaw and that sort of thing. But it's not something that I would recommend, you know, planting out in the environment for canopy.
What about the Princeton elm?
Princeton elm would be another good one.
The one you said was big.
Yeah. And it's going to have, you know, the big, like, it has a very, you know, probably some of you remember the old American elms. They have the big vase shape. So the Princeton still has that, that more vase shape, you know, more of a, more resembling an American elm, but it is very resilient to the Dutch elm disease, which is why we no longer have many elms in the environment.
Okay.
So if we are only planning on doing half and half, 15,000, and you said it could be 500, just plan on
That's-
500 per planting, that makes 30 trees.
Correct.
Well,
Oh.
depending on how much
Oh,
the
if
tree.
you're talking about like half for the trees and half for the planting, is that?
No, she's saying half the grant, because I know at one point,
Guess we're not
you know, the mayor had made, had raised concern about, you know, putting a large amount up at
Right, right,
once.
right.
So we had discussed putting it up into at least 2, if not 3 plantings.
Right.
So I think what, you know, she's discussing is, you know, instead of, you know, if you do 2 plantings, you'd have 2 $15,000 plantings.
But would you say that the 500 quote includes the price of the tree and the labor?
Yes, that would be, yeah, that would be a tree planted, mulched, and delivered, or,
So
you know.
we need to look at
But
potentially
not the
buying
cost of
30
the tree.
trees.
No, that would be,
So
that would be a tree.
$500 tree installation I wrote down is the cost of the tree.
Yes,
And of installation.
yes.
Yes.
Sorry, that is total cost.
So if we're looking, we need to look at potentially buying 30 trees.
Now, Robert, that probably didn't, or did it include like the tree bags, the watering bags? That 500 be incorporated?
You would probably still be in that same ballpark.
Okay.
You know, those tree bags are only like $20, so it's
Okay.
not like there's a huge expense to. Just trying to look here.
So do you happen to know broken out, like if we would ask a couple of different landscapers and our local guy or whatever, how much would you charge to install a tree? Do you know that portion? So like, obviously if it's over $500 tree, that's not. But
Yeah,
are we thinking like half is for the tree and half is for installation? Typically?
Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty close. I mean, I'm just going back here and looking at the most recent stuff that I have easy access to is from Washington Courthouse, which obviously isn't that far from you guys. You know, they had, well, this was from this was from last spring. They were at $350 a tree installed.
So if we plan 500, we might get more bang for our buck. We might have some.
Well,
extra.
and the other thing is to remember is that if you are planting in one site, so if all of your trees are at the park planted, you can get a little better deal than if you have 2 down here and 2 up there and 2 up there, and you know, it's easier and more cost effective for them because they can they can knock that stuff out a little bit quicker and don't have that work of running back and forth.
So maybe we need to talk to whoever they bought their trees from if they're at that price.
Yeah, because I'm looking at these normal prices and like for this elm, it says it's normally $300. So are we saying that that price is exorbitant, or is it typical for someone to install that for another $50 if they're doing them $350 a tree, you know?
So I will tell you, the farther you can get from Columbus, the cheaper things will be.
Sense.
You know, I know Alistair had said at one point that that, you know, realistically, if, you know, most of his contracts were between, you know, $600 and $800 a tree. This is one. This is an invoice from 12 of last year, so last fall, and they were essentially right at $350 a tree for 28 trees.
Installed?
That is provide and install the specified trees according to our
$350 a tree
standard and specs.
Okay.
installed. Courthouse did last fall.
Now that does not, I don't believe that includes the water bags. So he charged another, let me see if I can find that, another $850 to provide and install the, you know, so whatever that ends up being.
850 for what?
$850 to provide and install the water bags.
That was for 28 trees, right?
28 trees.
Yep.
$850?
Yeah.
That's about $30 a bag.
So yeah, that's $380 a tree, you know, essentially lock, stock, and barrel.
So, yeah, so we're under 400, so that's,
And, you know, I mean, Bill had asked me to put together some contractor names. So, you know, I have those guys. I have, and then I reached out to Circleville, who's been doing a lot of work. And then I reached out to Grove City because I know the urban forest or the city arborist there to see who they use. So I have all of those contacts if you guys, and typically what Grove City has been doing is they have been sourcing their own trees and then hiring other people to contract them. But I know that Courthouse and Circleville has been having the contractor supply and plant. So
So, is there like Courthouse, and are we gonna have like that contact to see where they got their trees and
it's
installation?
Funderburg Land Management is who they used.
Thunderbird with an
Yeah.
F?
Yes, Funderburg. I can give you his phone number if you want it. I believe his name is Mitch. 740-505-2240.
505.
'I didn't realize you had it written down. I thought you had that off the top of your head. I was like, that's scary.
And then Circleville,
Be able to do that too.
you know, that was back in the day before we had cell phones and you had to know numbers in your head.
Back then.
Circleville has been using Rhodes Garden Center out of Circleville
Great place.
for all their stock, and Grove City also recommended them. That's who they get a lot of their wholesale. They buy their stuff wholesale and then have it planted by other contractors. But
What'd
if you
say, Rhodes? What-
Rhodes Garden Center,
They're out by Laurelville, aren't they? Out right off of 18,
no, I think they're right off of 56.
56.
They're just on the
Route 56.
east side or south side of
Right.
town there.
Yeah, great place.
So, and if you want, I can email you all 4 of these. So there's 4.
Perfect.
That'd be great.
And again, not that I'm anti-Darby Creek, I just, you know,
So
getting as
far
much
as
bang
our
for your
list
buck.
now, I mean, do we want any of these, or are we just gonna say we're
Or
gonna
just the most
pass,
local?
or?
My feeling is I think that you're going to be better off to get as much as possible from one source. And, you know, again, I'm sure that, you know, realistically, like as soon as you guys decide on the fall planting, we probably need to get started on the spring planting and, you know, and get that list done, say in, you know, by December or January at the latest. And try to get those trees ordered, you know, and held for you, because the earlier you can get them, you know, that order in, the better off the availability is, the more likely you are to get what you want. So,
Okay.
Becky, are we gonna try to plant this fall, or are we looking at next
No,
spring
this
and
fall.
next fall?
This
That's what I thought.
This fall,
so yeah, you know, it wouldn't hurt to try to get things done this fall and then the spring. And then if for some reason, you know, you end up with some leftovers or whatever, then you've got next fall to finish up, because we don't want you guys to give back money.
right,
So you're saying that we should probably get some lindens, bur oak, Kentucky coffee, and elm. That's what we're gonna put down And then,
And I had also in there possible list black gum or horse chestnuts.
gotcha.
Okay, but yes.
So we have our list of trees.
Yep.
Yes.
And so now we're just gonna look for
The person.
We're gonna
the
reach out
person.
to possibly this Funderburg Land Management and see if they have, and again, the size of trees we need is a
Inch and a half.
1 to 1.5 inch caliber.
And, some of those end up a little bigger, and, as long as you don't end up with like a 3-inch tree,
Yeah.
you're okay. But yeah, you end up with an inch, I'm not
So-
going out there
so
with a
if we
tape
call
measure.
this place, we say, I guess we need a plan right now, like how many trees, if we're figuring. we could
And
do
maybe
a-
you say, look, hey, we're in the same, we're in the same boat as Washington Courthouse is. We've got this grant. We need to spend whatever you guys decide it is, whether it's 10 this fall or 15 this fall. Make sure that the administration's on board so they don't get a bill that's unexpected. You call Funderburg and say, hey, we've got $15,000 to spend this fall on tree plantings. This is kind of the species list we're looking at. What can you do, and what does that list look like, and how many trees can you do? Because then you're not going back and forth to him and saying, oh, well, at first we wanted 25 trees, but 25 trees isn't really in the budget, so let's do 12, just give him, kind of your, and say, hey, we want you to plant them, we want you to mulch them, we want you to put water bags on. Because Courthouse ended up adding the water bags later on, and, again, that's just an added cost. Not that there's not the money there for it, but if you have one full package, one price, you're gonna be better off.
Okay. And then the optimal time, I know you said is fall, but are we talking October or November? What do you?
From the time that leaf comes off until the ground freezes.
Yeah,
So, that might be the 1st of November, or that might be, next November.
what should I say?
Let's shoot for October. Let's shoot for-
I mean, typically,
For late October?
typically late October, through mid-November, is kind of ideal. But again, the biggest thing is, leaf off, and, ideally the tree is dormant, and, again, as long as it's not, the ground's not frozen.
Okay. Okay.
Well, our next, I believe our next tree meeting should be September 15th. Is it the first Tuesday, second Tuesday? So it would be, so it would be the 8th, September 8th. So if we could bring a full, and,
But we probably should already have them, shouldn't we just like place this order as soon as possible? 'Cause if we wait till September, it might be too late to get it done in October.
And again, I don't know what kind of sourcing these folks have. You may be able to call them and say, hey, look, and again, realistically, and again, I don't know, every community operates a little bit differently, but, typically that, is that purchase approved by Tree Commission, or is that purchase approved by administration?
Well, we would vote to do it here, because we got the grant, and then we would tell administration, it's already been approved, they've already approved doing it, but we would have to tell Courtney, we got this bid, and this is how much it's gonna be, and she would have to make sure it was in the right order.
Got a
so there's no-
PO and got all the paperwork done,
Yes,
and
the POs and all that, and get that all worked out. So basically, we would report to Courtney what we needed, and then she would pay it, because, they're expecting it.
the other thing, that I've been encouraging my folks to do, because I have had multiple communities have issues, is either make it a partial payment on completion and partial payment upon approval. The inspection that's done will be done by Maggie and I, to ensure.
You'll be here for the beginning of installation,
Yes.
making sure they're doing it right.
Yep. As long as that's
And then we'll
coordinated.
come back when the installation is done,
Yep.
and then you approve it, and then,
And then, once we say yes, because the problem is that we've had several communities that have had trees planted that have been done poorly. The contractor's already been paid. So it's very tough to say, hey, you didn't do this correctly, or you didn't, you didn't perform to the contract specs. If you've paid them everything, you're kind of, relying on their.
Suggesting to them, we pay them the actual installer half upon
Again,
inspection?
again, some of it's gonna have to be, and that may be a conversation that you have with, whoever your contractor is like, hey, look, these have to be inspected by ODNR, they're for a grant, they have to be inspected to spec, to our contract specs, which I think I sent out to everybody, at least once before. So, make sure that when you guys are talking about it, that they have that so they know. Obviously, like Rhodes and Funderburg both have planted under the grant before, so they kind of, now Rhodes is a little bit different because Circleville's money came direct from the feds and not through us as the Division of Forestry. So that's a little bit different, but they still kind of have that general idea. And Tyler Minton, who's kind of running things over there, has a pretty tight ship. So, again, if they're okay with that, the other thing that we can do is, depending on my schedule, typically, if things are completed, and you call me, I'm typically out, as long as I know, I try to get out there within, a week-ish, which typically is faster than you guys can make payment anyway.
Yeah.
I've worked for the government for long enough to know that, the wheels of the government move slow. So, that's something that, can also be done is just, before that they get paid, let's make sure that things are up to spec so that if there's issues, we can get them corrected.
Now, knowing what you know from the courthouse group and the grant, they've done all of this, that shouldn't be an issue, right?
Let's put it this way. Washington Courthouse has had 2 planting contractors. I'm only giving you the name of one.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay,
That's good.
so
We've got
our
a
next
list.
step, okay, so we have a list of the proven varieties that we're going to try to get about 5 species.
And again, if he says, well, I can get plenty of bur oak, but I can't get any of XYZ, well then, this year we're going to plant heavy to bur oak, and in the spring we're not going to plant any bur oak.
Okay.
So don't, think about
Don't
it.
get locked in.
Yeah, don't get
Well,
locked
don't
in
get
on saying,
involved, yeah.
hey, we have to have, 5 different species planted this fall. Let's look at, for the entirety grant, let's plant 5 species. And the longer out you look, if you call right now and say, hey, we're looking for trees for next fall, the likelihood of, they're either going to say, call us back in the spring because you're crazy calling out this early, or they're going to say, yeah, let's see what we can do for you. And that's where, establishing a relationship with a nursery, and, maybe that's what you start doing is start working with Darby Creek right now and saying, hey, look, we want to work with you guys. We're sorry we didn't make a decision early enough for you guys to be able to provide what we're looking for. What can we do moving forward to be able to work with you guys in the future? This is kind of what we're looking for. Can you source it? Because again, I'm all for working local. As local as you can keep that money, the better off you are.
Yeah. This Funderburg, are they out of courthouse? I know they.
I
did
believe
work
so,
in
yes.
courthouse. I mean, that's probably even more local than Darby Creek. Courthouse is 20 minutes. Darby Creek's probably 40, but.
So do we, as a committee right now, need to make the suggestion that we move forward with ordering the variety of trees and working with this Washington Courthouse group?
Well, I think it's a good place. I don't know if we lock ourselves into this group, because we may call them and they're like, we're fresh out for something crazy.
Or we've taken all the
You're
planting
sending
contracts.
us 4 different.
Yeah, I'll
numbers.
send that. Yep.
And, so, yeah, I think we need to just make a little recommendation to, call a landscaper and an installer with, our list of varieties and, with our budget of 10 to 15,000, installed, water bagged and everything, beginning to end, and see if they are available for a late October, mid-November planting, and that we can give them this, that we're working off of a grant that will need to be inspected by ODNR, so they'll need to work off the contract specs, and, does that sound all encompassing?
Well, what I was wondering, Becky, is do you want to get like 3 estimates, like call 3 of the 4, and I had given you a name of somebody else too, Arceli out of
Yeah.
Chillicothe.
I mean, I'm fine with doing that, but I don't think we have time to come back in a month to decide. I think, like,
Well, no, then they would
just
just,
move forward.
we would just say, here are the 3 estimates, and this was the best price, or this is the best reputation with the best price, or whatever.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with checking in with more than one person, but,
And, you guys can make a motion that, upon calling the available contractors, we're gonna move forward with, the lowest and best bid. I think that would be, and then that way, that allows you to keep moving without waiting
Right.
another 3 weeks or
I
whatever.
think, though, my only comment with that is, I love that you've suggested a company that's already done work with a grant, that knows the parameters, knows the tree size, that knows that we are gonna need the bags, the mulch. I think that is really reassuring.
right.
Not that I
So-
don't like your.
Oh, but they have
person
2.
suggestion. Oh, they have,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
They're like
I
number
don't
1.
mind that. I think the motion should just be simply that we do make the calls to as many as we see necessary on this
Just to
list.
get some
Make sure it
estimates.
meets all the, requirements, get the estimates, and then we're gonna have to make,
Well,
I'm
whoever,
gonna have to make an executive decision just to go ahead and hire one of them. And then, bring that back to the next meeting, I guess.
and just
but
be
it
like,
would
this
be
is
done.
who,
This is who's doing it. But I guess that would be my recommendation right now, to,
Call company to spend 10 to 15 for an late October, mid-November plant and move forward with the lowest bid.
move forward with the
Lowest and best bid.
best bid, I would word, because lowest might not be the best.
Lowest and best.
Lowest and
Is
best.
typically how we have you word it.
Okay.
to
Second.
include, oh, sorry, but
What?
to continue to include mulch and
Yep.
bags.
All that,
And that's
we
included in the contract part.
have all that written down, so that'll be, okay, so the motion's on the table.
I'll second it.
Okay, Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Are you waiting for me?
Yes.
No.
And what
Okay,
is
no.
your?
I'm
no.
uncomfortable
Okay.
with too many decisions, you can make all the recommendations you want, and I
made a
agree with them.
recommendation. So,
Oh, I didn't want to finish.
1, 2, 3.
well, let her finish.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought
Continue.
you were done.
No, I was making my statement that I'm uncomfortable with some of these things not going back to council. I think that you're making recommendations that are fine, but they still need to be, council always has the final approval on everything. And you're spending this money that I was of the impression, as council is, that we were gonna do this in quarters, not halves.
Well, the
or not
last meeting
thirds.
we had, it was suggested that we do,
But council's under the impression that it's going to come in quarters. That's what I'm uncomfortable with.
it's not-
That's all I'm saying.
well, that's not all of council, because we have 2 council members also
Okay,
right
well,
here.
again,
So it's,
again.
I don't know about that,
When it
but
came-
I'm
when
just
it came to
going based
council,
on
it
our
was in
last
quarters.
tree meeting. It was, let's plant in those
Mary, I'm
fall.
saying when it came to council, we were gonna do it in quarters. That's what I'm saying.
Recorded somewhere?
So.
I
Can I respond to that? So with that said, there's no way we could have done a planting the first quarter. We weren't prepared, we had no supplies. There's
But
no
we're
way we
moving
could have
forward,
done a spring
we're moving
planting.
forward without council approval.
We already have council approval
Okay,
on the grant.
I just voted no, you can move on.
That's fine. Can I explain now
Sure.
what I want to say?
Sure.
So, if.
It's 5
you
minutes
know,
till 2.
Robert had made the comment, we could still divide this into three sections of 10,000. And that would be absolutely fine with me because we have 3 planting seasons left. But Robert made the comment that what if scenario, something happens the very last third of this and we're not able to get back out there, or, you know, I don't know. He had just made the mention of if you do it in the first 2, and then if you have anything left over,
Correct.
you can finish up, but it puts less pressure on losing the money at the end.
Right,
If
that's
you
what,
would do it in 2, and then you would still have time to adapt if you hadn't completed it.
And the other thing is that originally these grants would have been awarded in spring of 25, which would have given you fall of 25, all of 26, and all of 27. But with the changes that the current federal administration made, we did not get these grants awarded until fall of 25, which ate up one, full season, and then it was late enough that I think only 1 or 2 communities got something done this spring. So most everybody's in the situation where they're working on 3 planting seasons, where originally our hope was to give people 5 planting seasons.
gotcha.
And with that said, I mean, all this money is 100% reimbursed to the village. So the village is just loaning us the money, and then they get it back, and the time frame after your approval is generally,
Everything is dependent. I've been telling everybody to plan for 4 to 6 weeks. It seems like things are moving a little faster than that, but that can change at any time if something happens. So, I have communities getting funds back in as few as a couple of weeks. And that's from reimbursement submittal. That's not from the time the check is cut.
Right.
So, but once you get the check, as soon as you can provide, you have to provide invoice, the check, and then proof of payment. So a canceled check or something like that. So once you can provide all that, immediately you get, that same day, you guys, as soon as you have that stuff, you can submit reimbursement.
Gotcha.
Typically, I try to turn that around within 24 or 48 hours to Columbus, and then we'll keep the ball rolling as fast as possible, so.
perfect.
Well, the recommendation passes. Let's
Okay.
wrap up.
It's almost 2 o'clock.
I do want to we only have 2 minutes left. I want to thank you, Robert, again, for coming last month all the way down here to plant that one little tree. That was, I know there were only 6 or 7 children there, but they all did enjoy it, and we appreciate you doing that and taking the time to talk to them about the importance of trees. I was very, very grateful of that. It didn't have to be a big event to get you here, and I like that. So with that said, the only other thing on the list, and we can talk about that more next month, was just any updates on the oldest tree. And I know last night at the council meeting, I believe, or maybe it was at the water meeting, it was brought up that there's a big dumpster out there across from it, so we're gonna get to the bottom of that, if that could still be left over from the water tower or whatever. But I guess we'll talk more about the oldest tree later, and then the budget would just be, I'm assuming we're not gonna ask for any special budgetary amounts, just the normal amount, operating amount that we have always asked for, which is $2 per capita. Okay?
Gotcha.
Sound good? Okay, so anyone have any we have 1 minute literally left. Anybody have any last minute concerns or questions?
Well, I, again, would like to address the members of council here. That bird has built another nest out there on the way in, and there's crap out there, and it's so sad when you walk in there. And I just think about people that come here to do business, or just to come in, pay their water bill, to see that. I know it's an ongoing battle, but would appreciate
Okay, we will
getting
pass
that
that
cleaned up
along.
again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was really clean yesterday.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Interesting, huh?
fill her in. Okay, so I've got, oh, Margaret, it's Maggie.
Yes, either works.
Peggy,
Huh?
Maggie.
or Peggy.
Or Peggy.
Why did you say Peggy?
Because Margaret and Peggy.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Daisy is also a nickname for Margaret.
It is.
Daisy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Daisy.
Really?
The French,
pick
the
that
French
up
word
where
for
you're
Margaret.
Should not tell me that.
Are you, that's what you're gonna call me? They called me